Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to tonight's live stream where myself and George will be reviewing the January transfer window, saying who we think's done the best and worst business, giving our signing of the window. But first things first, guys, we brought up the 300 subscribers today, so thank you so much for all of your support so far. Really great to hit that target at the start of the month. So the hard work begins now, road to 400. So as always, guys, please do smash a like on the video and click that subscribe button. George, January transfer window slam shut last night. Not very eventful for us Chelsea fans. Newcastle United, the biggest spenders in the window, totaling £93 million. Liverpool signed the most expensive player in Luis Diaz, bringing the 25-year-old Colombian winger in from Porto. Manchester City also doing a little bit of business with Julian Alvarez, signed from River Plate, the young Argentine forward who will spend the rest of the season on loan at River Plate. We had teams near the bottom doing a little bit. Burnley getting a couple in last night. Everton with Frank Lampard getting a couple of midfielders in on loan, which could be potentially quite exciting. But George, let's start with Chelsea. No business done. Are you disappointed by that? I mean, I've seen a lot of fans slightly pissed off that we've not brought anyone in, considering the wing-back options or lack of options in a full-back area. I was a little bit pissed, but throughout the window. But I've kind of had time to sit and think about it, and I'm quite content with the fact we've bought no one. And I think it's good that we've not panicked and spent money on someone that is going to come in on potentially big wages, and then we can't shift them, because we've had that so many times before with multiple dead wood that we still have, the likes of Drinkwater, Batshuayi, Bakayoko, etc. We've seen it before, so I'm quite pleased in that sense. I'm just worried if an injury occurs, what might happen if Marcos Alonso got injured, for example. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on no incomings at Chelsea?
Well, I think it's, as you said, it's more about, can we add quality that matches what we have, essentially? And the answer to that was no. So reflecting on it, I'm not particularly concerned. I think the numbers wise, you could argue that we possibly need additions to the squad to cover certain areas for the rest of the season. But then January's a tricky one. You can never, inflated prices, big players that you want aren't available because they're at clubs who are playing European competitions and therefore don't want to leave. So you're really clutching at straws. And I agree. I think, reflecting on it, I think Chelsea did the right thing by not panicking and just making numbers for numbers' sake. I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, and we might look back at this and think, my goodness, we really should have brought extra bodies in. I mean, it only takes a long-term Alonso injury and possibly, Silva being out, and we're all at sea. But if you look at the history-wise, January windows tend to be fairly uneventful in terms of the impact those players make. And as I've touched on, inflated prices. And I just think the quality wasn't there for what we needed. I know there was an inquiry made very, very late on about Ousmane Dembele. Looks like that might be a summer target now. But other than that, mate, for me, there was nothing out there really, other than possibly calling Emerson back, that could have been, functional for what we've got at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you on that one, mate. There's no point just bringing a body in for the sake of it. But the summer window is now, as we've touched on before, is massive for Chelsea and for us. It really is crucial. By not spending any money in January, we should obviously have more to spend in the summer, but not just incomings. It's absolutely vital in the summer that we get rid of all the shit players that we've got. Those, as I touched on before, those Bakayoko.
Loved your tweets, by the way.
Yeah. Those Bakayokos, those Drinkwaters, Ross Barkley's, Baba Rahman, still, we signed him from Schalke, I think, a number of years ago, still on the books. Michy Batshuayi, these guys need to all go. And I think Chelsea could do with taking a page out of Arsenal's book where, for example, with Aubameyang, which we'll come on to, just terminated his deal. Took the kind of the financial hit of no fee, but they got £25 million worth of wages off the bill. We need those wages off the bill. It frees up money. So it's a big summer in terms of outgoings, and it's an equally big summer in terms of incomings as well. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I agree with you, mate. I don't think, whilst it's frustrating because we could have potentially needed another body, I think we probably got enough to get by to the end of the season, providing there's no injuries. Reece James will be coming back in the next couple of weeks, so that's a big plus. And to be fair, we could win the Club World Cup and the Carabao Cup this month. And I don't think anyone will be then moaning, oh, why don't we sign anyone in January? So, yeah, frustrations, I understand that. But I think ultimately, in the long term, it is the right thing to do. But moving on from Chelsea, let's head to the other end of the table, George. Newcastle first window with the new Saudi-backed owners, the new money. They were really struggling down the bottom. Still only 2 wins this season, but only a point from safety now. This window was really important for them to get bodies in. The biggest spenders, £93 million. Statement signing of Bruno Guimaraes for £37 million, the Brazilian box-to-box midfielder from Lyon. George, what have you made of Newcastle's business, and do you feel they've now got enough to stay up?
Well, it's a real statement of intent from the owners. I think they came in with basically a backing, saying that they were going to back the manager in the January transfer window, and I think they have done. But the issue that they've got is there's a certain caliber of player that they can go for with the precarious situation they're in at the moment, which is fighting for relegation. Kieran Trippier was another great one that they managed to get. So I think, obviously when the takeover happened, people were shooting for the stars and thinking that they could bring the best type of players, but that's going to take time, and that's going to take, certainly it's imperative they stay in the Premier League. If they manage to do that this season, which is no foregone conclusion so far with the amount of wins they've had, if they can do that, then potentially the summer is huge for Newcastle. But I think it was an exciting window for them. I mean, just think of where they were, even less than 6 months ago under Steve Bruce, and struggling to sort out any sort of performances, and now having their biggest window for a long time. And I'm a bit of a I dream, and I'm a bit of a, I don't know, I like these ideas of stories, so I want Newcastle to do well. Fundamentally, they're a huge club, and I hope that those signings have given them enough to get over the line. But again, it's no certainty, because they're going to have to hit the ground running. There's no space for them to just settle in.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, do you like the way that Eddie Howe's gone about it in terms of bringing in kind of obviously one statement signing and then bringing in Premier League experience? So Trippier, I know Chris Wood's not the most exciting, but it weakens Burnley, Premier League experience. Matty Targett on loan on the other side, Premier League experience. Dan Burn, the centre-half from Brighton, Premier League experience. How important is that when looking to bring players in to a relegation battle, that you don't spend time having to bed in the majority of them because they're not used to the league?
Yeah, and it's happened far too often with managers who have come in and tried to buy this so-called star player who's going to try and get you 10, 15 goals in that relegation tail end of the season. So I think Eddie Howe's very intelligent. Great point you made there about not just buying players, but buying players in and around who are in the same position. So you're weakening those sides as you're strengthening your own, which is a real asset that Newcastle now have, the likes of Wood up front. So I think they've got the balance right. Of course, again, only time will tell whether those players settle in. It's still going to be a bit of a dogfight at the bottom, I think. I don't think we're going to see them just tear away and come out of there safe. I think it will go down to the last couple of weeks, but I mean, it needs to go right, doesn't it? I mean, there's no other. If it doesn't, then they're in a serious situation where they've got huge wage bills, and there's probably clauses in these people's contracts that they can leave if they do get relegated, I'm sure. But I'm a romanticist, and I really hope that they do well out of this.
I also think on potentially getting relegated, if they do, other than Guimaraes, I think a lot of those signings, obviously I know some are on loan, but some of the permanent ones, your likes of your Dan Burns, your Chris Woods, possibly Kieran Trippier, they're looking at, would these guys stick with us if we get relegated? And I think there's a number of those signings that probably would stick with them. In terms of Guimaraes, George, how important is it though with a new regime? Players are always, reluctant to join. It always takes one to join, and then like the floodgates might open and players think, oh, we've seen so-and-so join, we're going to give it a go. How big a statement is it for Newcastle to get in someone the caliber of Bruno Guimaraes, given the fact that the likes of Arsenal were interested as well?
It's huge, to pip a club of the size of Arsenal to this signing. And like you said, once one big player comes through the door, I think Newcastle have got that advantage in the sense that they've always been a big club. The fan base around Tyneside has been huge. So it's a one club team up there, and they've done it before in terms of being right at the very top with some big name players that have played there before. Alan Shearer to name just a few. So it is a statement of intent, and it will hopefully be the catalyst for new arrivals in the summer. But again, that's all dependent on if they can stay in the Premier League. That is essentially the nuts and bolts of it. If they don't, then we can forget about this whole rebuild of Newcastle.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, teams down the bottom near them. I mean, Burnley bought a couple in, not a great deal. Bought in a forward, Wout Weghorst from Wolfsburg to replace Chris Wood. I think they bought in a winger from Dynamo Zagreb as well. So interesting to see how they settle. I mean, I don't think Watford did a great deal. I don't think Leeds have done an awful lot either. So Newcastle have definitely stolen a march on the teams in and around them with the business they've done. I don't think Norwich did an awful lot either. But another team, George, that is right down there at the moment and could get sucked into it if they don't start picking up wins soon. That's Everton. Newly appointed manager Frank Lampard. I'd be interested to see how he gets on there. 2 signings through the door on deadline day. Donny van der Beek, the Manchester United midfielder on loan, and a permanent transfer of Dele Alli, who's fallen out of favour at Tottenham, completely lost his form as a footballer, hasn't played well for a long time now. This could be the perfect scenario for both of these players to kind of reignite their careers under Frank Lampard. And Lampard, as we know from his time at Chelsea, George, likes to play 2 number 8s in midfield with like a number 6 behind. So with Everton, with the likes of Decore or Alan in that holding position, it then gives license for perhaps Dele Alli and Donny van der Beek to get forward. I mean, what are your thoughts on those 2 acquisitions for Everton?
Exciting, and they're both quality players. I mean, in isolation, I think Van der Beek's had a very tough time at Manchester United. I don't think he was given the fair crack of the whip at all, and bought in for
40 million.
a fair £40 million, and to not get a start, be on the bench. I know they've got a lot of quality players in and around that same position. For Dele, I mean, Jose was right in that documentary about him perhaps being a bit lazy and relying too much on talent, and I think that's been the downward spiral, unfortunately, at Spurs. He's not progressed from those really peak years that he was showing fantastic signs, getting into the international team on a regular basis, scoring some outrageous goals. And then it just tailed away, didn't it? And he needs a revamp, and he seems really positive in his interview when he just came out of the building about being an admirer of Frank Lampard as a player, and he just wants to enjoy his football again. So I think both acquisitions are pretty positive. I know they've had a tough time and it will take time to turn around, but sometimes it's just a new set of eyes, a new manager that's going to back you and believe in you. And if they can get them, Frank can get them playing to the levels, even just half the levels that they were showing at their previous clubs before, beginning of Spurs, MK Dons for Dele Alli and for Van der Beek. For Ajax, I think they've got 2 incredible players there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's important that Frank's got to hit the ground running. He's got to get this side to gel, get more of a tune out of them than Benitez did. I'm sure the mood around the place will be lifted. I think things are pretty dark towards the end of Rafa's reign there. How important is it, though, George, for Lampard that, these 2 he integrates these 2 signings and he starts picking up wins really quickly? They've got a massive game against Newcastle in their next league match, and that's must win, lose, and they're very much in a relegation battle.
Yep, and there's no doubt that they backed him, thinking that, again, they cannot afford to get relegated. This is going to test Frank Lampard. I think, again, he's going to be given time. Like any manager, he'll probably get a bit of a bounce where, the tempo will be high, the fans will back him, but it's very short term, only lasts so long. And if he can't get these players to click and the results are still pretty poor, it doesn't matter what brand of football you're playing. I mean, we saw it at Chelsea eventually, even a fan base that loved him beyond belief. Even then, the club decided to part ways. So at Everton, I think, yes, he's got the backing because the Rafa Benitez history and the rivalry with Liverpool probably gave him less time than Frank will get. But it's a results-based business and he has to get it right because of the backing. Yeah,
but it's two definitely exciting signings and something to build on for Everton, and a bit of a feel-good factor around the place again after, not a great 6 months of the Benitez reign and appointment, obviously, last summer. Turning attentions, George, to the other end of the table now. Before we get into the teams battling for the top four, Liverpool done some good business, I think, stealing a march on Tottenham by getting Luis Diaz in. Luis Diaz was obviously a long-term, was like more of a summer target for Liverpool, but I think with Spurs' interest, that accelerated them into action to make sure they didn't miss out on the player. 25 years of age, Colombian international, exciting player, playing in the Champions League this season. It's a great deal for Liverpool, and it's just the start of them perhaps building for the next cycle of that front line. They've got Jota there at the moment, is a mid-20s. They've obviously brought in Diaz now as well. It's the beginning of the transition away from Salah, Mane, and Firmino. Liverpool seem to get a lot of these signings right. I mean, are you impressed with how quickly they acted to beat Spurs to this and their forward planning?
Yeah, it's a quality signing for me. And we called it out on this very channel about Klopp and Liverpool perhaps coming to an end of a cycle, and they haven't necessarily got enough in numbers with squad depth. I know they've coped very well considering the AFCON's been going on, but they just needed a bit of a revamp. And again, this is a statement of intent. I think this is a quality player that they've brought in here for the long term. And we're starting to see now, again, Klopp tends to get it right with his transfers. May not be the most exciting on the team sheet or the names, but he knows his players inside out, and they've got a real good recruitment policy there. And every professional and every expert will tell you recruitment is probably the number one thing you've got to get right at a football club. And Liverpool have had that bang on for the last 4 or 5 years. And again, I think this is another signing where they continue to do so.
Yeah, it's going to help them out this season as well. He's got 6 months to bed in. He'll play some minutes. I'm sure he'll make a few appearances, but he'll obviously will kick on over the pre-season and next summer. And I think one of the existing front three will leave, whether it's Mane, whether it's Firmino or Salah. So to get one of the next lot in already is great business, a great price, and great planning. Manchester City didn't really need to do any business. They're walking the league. They have obviously brought in a young forward from River Plate who will spend the rest of the season on loan there, potentially being touted as the next Aguero. But again, good business from them. Obviously tying down João Cancelo to a new contract as well, even though he's got until 2025 on his current one, another 2-year extension, getting key players tied down, getting the business sorted early. Let's moving into the race for the top four. I think the teams fighting for the top four, your Tottenham, Man United, West Ham, Arsenal, I think they all had terrible windows. Let's start with Arsenal, George. Obviously, very light up front with just Lacazette and Nketiah, linked with a lot of names. Dusan Vlahovic, a Fiorentina forward, who ultimately ended up at Juventus. Calvert-Lewin was on the list. Alexander Isak, the young Sociedad and Sweden forward. Ultimately, no one comes in. The Arsenal squad's thin as it is at the moment. They got rid of some squad players like Pablo Mari on loan, I think, to Udinese. Ainsley Maitland-Niles out on loan to Roma. Callum Chambers on a permanent to Aston Villa. And Aubameyang, their captain, on that big contract. Obviously, has been frozen out by Arteta. I'm not sure what's gone on. Obviously, disciplinary issues. We don't know the full extent of it. Joins Barcelona on a free transfer. George, Arsenal obviously probably weren't expecting to be fighting for the top four this season, but given how it's worked out and how close it is, and the fact now that they're just playing once a week for the rest of the season, no domestic cups, no European football, a lot of Arsenal fans are seeing this as a massive missed opportunity not to be bringing someone in the market in. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, you can take it two ways, can't you? Because you could almost say it's a good window because they're trying to get rid of the deadwood that's been there for so many years. And you've got to act in those situations. Yes, they could have held on to Aubameyang and he may have scored, a handful of goals for them for the rest of the season. But ultimately, that club has gone backwards for over a decade and they need to just act and sort it out. I mean, if that means going even further back, but getting rid of the players that they need that are necessary to not only, get the funds in so they can drop the wage bill, get some transfer money back and start again and strip that squad, because I think they need to. Yes, they've got some emerging talent, the likes of Smith Rowe, Martinelli, I think the winger is.
Odegaard. Yeah.
Odegaard. Then they can build around that. That can be their spine. Again, with Ramsdale, who was actually a fantastic sign. I thought it was a bit of a joke, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so did I.
And there was me also saying that Aubameyang was one of the best strikers in Europe. But having said that,
he is. No, he's still.
he's moving.
I think
He's moved
he
to
is. Yeah.
Barcelona. I think he can be, and I think if he goes to Barcelona with a fresh mindset, I think he can be again. So you can look at it both. You can look at it two ways. For me, I think it can't get any worse at Arsenal, and I think they need to get rid of the deadwood. And if that means getting rid of a high-profile player off the wage bill, I think that's good business. It's just one of those windows. I think summer's going to, again, I know I'm reiterating the same thing, but summer's going to be the key window for them. They've got the fortuitous position where they're only playing once a week, as you said. That's not ideal anyway, because they want to be competing on all fronts, and they should be as a club of the size of Arsenal. But I think they've got to go backwards to go forwards.
I mean, I don't have any problem with Arsenal getting rid of Aubameyang. I think it gets his wages off. It saves them £25 million over the course of the remainder of his contract. So even though they're not actually getting a transfer fee for him, saving that 25 million is probably about what they might have got for him in a fee anyway. So I've got no problem with that. But my issue with Arsenal is this is a big missed opportunity. I know you probably weren't expecting top four at the start of the season, but this is a massive chance to get it. And to have no investment in the January window is really poor. I know they bought in 2 players from the MLS that are going to join in the summer. I think a centre-half and a goalkeeper. That's no great shakes or anything. But yeah, to go in with just Lacazette and Nketiah, who are both out of contract in the summer anyway, who are both bang average, I just think they've left themselves massively short, and it's a big missed opportunity in an open fight for the top 4. But time will tell. I mean, could look back on this at the end of the season and could be a large slice of humble pie. But I highly doubt it. I mean, moving on to another team in that top 4 battle, Manchester United, George. No incomings whatsoever. A lot of United fans not pleased that they didn't look to bring in kind of a defensive midfielder. Obviously, they were linked with Dennis Zakaria, the Swiss and Borussia Mönchengladbach midfielder, who ended up joining Juventus for about €8 million, whose contract was up in the summer anyway. They missed out on him. In terms of outgoings, Phil Jones couldn't agree a loan deal with Bordeaux. And Jesse Lingard, who was obviously blocked from joining West Ham on loan because they saw West Ham as a direct rival for the top 4. And last minute was then blocked from joining Newcastle on loan as well. Part of my feeling is that the reason why that was blocked is probably because, one, they've lost Van der Beek on loan. And then obviously the Mason Greenwood scenario, which they weren't expecting. Yeah. That's another body out. So perhaps that's why they kind of blocked Lingard leaving on loan. Even though the manager, Rangnick, said that Lingard had the blessing to leave. So I'm not sure if that's like a change of heart or the board interfering or whatnot. But I think with Greenwood out, which they weren't expecting, Lingard's obviously stayed. But United are in a big battle for the top 4. And a side that brought in Varane, Sancho and Ronaldo in the summer to be battling for the top 4 is really poor.
Yeah, I have no sympathy with Manchester United and their deluded fans about this transfer window. I mean, what else do they want? They bought in Sancho. They bought in the best player in world football in Ronaldo. The list goes on. And before that, Varane, they've got some quality footballers there. And, excuses need to stop now from Manchester United. I mean, how much more investment do they want? They are performing way below par. Yes, of course, they need additions eventually. And again, they've got a lot of deadwood in their own squad. But come on. I mean, the amount of investment that club has had and they haven't won a trophy in how many years, it's not acceptable. And they can go on about, we need a defensive midfielder. Well, you've got a World Cup winner in there. You've got Bruno Fernandes in there. Okay, they're not defensive, but you've got players in there that other clubs would love to have. So I don't have any sympathy for Manchester United, to be honest. I think they're you talk about recruitment there. I think it's an absolute shambles what they've done in terms of just, Ronaldo for the shirt sales. Pogba, could have got him off the books. He's been an absolute liability ever since he joined the club. I mean, I could have a whole show just on Manchester United. I just think it's just woeful. But there are issues there, like any club, but they've got enough quality to be maybe not necessarily title challenge, but they've got to close the gap. They've got to close the gap on Manchester City, like we all have. And a lot of people will argue on paper that Manchester United squad's no different to Chelsea's, really, in terms of quality international footballers, and yet that it goes way beyond transfers for that club.
Mate, do you still think they're favourites to finish in the top four ahead of the likes of your West Hams, your Arsenals, your Tottenhams?
I think so, just for the quality that they have. I think Ronaldo can get them out of trouble with winners. They've got winners in there. I know Ralph Rangnick probably won't keep the job moving forward past the summer, but I still think they've got enough quality to win most football matches.
Yeah. Do you think that's potentially another reason why perhaps they're reluctant to do any business in January, because they probably know that it's not going to be this, the manager's not going to be there in the summer. So players that are coming in now might not be fancied by their new manager. So I guess do you reckon that could have played some part in the thinking?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think they're probably holding fire. And again, if you assess the squad, they've got enough. You should say they have enough to get over the line for top. If they want top four, they should be good enough to get that fourth spot over the other clubs that are fighting for that fourth spot. Again, it's not a certainty, but I don't think they need any additions at this stage, knowing the uncertainty of the possible next permanent manager, which we don't know who will be.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. And disappointing window for Man United, but ultimately, I think, as you said, mate, I agree with you that they're probably still in the driving seat and favourites to finish in that top four position. Moving on to kind of the last two contenders, let's go to Tottenham Hotspur and Antonio Conte. Obviously, he's been very critical of the squad, the level at Tottenham. I'm not sure if he's going to be particularly happy with the transfer window they've had. I'm sure he would have liked to have been backed more. Missed out on their two main targets, Adama Traore ending up going to Barcelona on loan with an option to buy, and obviously Luis Diaz going to Liverpool instead. They obviously managed to get rid of Dele Alli out of the squad. Tanguy and Ndombele, the club record signing from Lyon, has rejoined Lyon on loan. And they've brought in two Juventus players in Rodrigo Bentancur, the central midfield player, and that was on a permanent. And then Kulusevski, the young Swedish winger, has come in on loan for 18 months. I think it's a 10 million euros loan fee for the 18 months and an obligation to buy. George, is Conte going to be pleased with that? And for Spurs, I'm just not sure that's a great window at all.
Well, he probably knows them from his time in Serie A, so that there may be some, substance behind that he's had a look at those players whilst being there. Kulusevski, he's a decent footballer. I like him. Again, I've always said that Tottenham have got enough quality in the squad to do much better and to aim higher. But from listening to a lot of Spurs fans on TalkSport, particularly after that Carabao Cup semi against Chelsea, both legs, I think they're a bit fed up with what's coming in and the quality that they can attract. But I think that's where they're at the moment. Unfortunately they didn't bridge that. If they'd won that Champions League final, it could have been so different for them. But held on to Harry Kane. Still that question mark, do they need to let him go and reinvest in the whole squad? It's debatable, but they've got a good spine there. I know you personally, you don't rate Hugo Lloris that highly, but I mean, again, he's a goalkeeper that's won the World Cup. They've got Song, Kane, they've got quality players, but I think a lot of the Spurs fans are getting a little bit fed up with the quality that's around them, the likes of Harry Winks, who I like, but it's clearly a lot of fans. A lot of fans don't think he's up to standard.
Oliver Skip, poor Højbjerg, average. Yeah,
they're just unfortunately okay footballers for Premier League level, but just okay, and that's the problem with Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah. It's not going to get you top four. I mean, I think those two signings will be enough to keep Conte happy for the rest of the season. The summer is where it's really going to count, and Daniel Levy is going to have to back Conte massively, because Conte will just walk. He will. Yeah. If he's not backed in the summer, he will leave. It's as simple as that. And people that say that Daniel Levy's a great operator in a transfer market, he's awful. He's terrible. He dithers around. They missed out on their two main targets because he fucked about or putting in disrespectful bids. The guy's useless. He's dreadful. So look, this is probably pleased Conte until the summer, but then in the summer is where it really counts, and Conte could walk if he's not backed. But George, just quickly on the last team then in that race for the top four, West Ham. I'm really surprised that they did no business at all, given the fact they're still in this top four race. It's a thin squad. They're an Antonio injury away up front from having real problems. They've got injury issues at the back. I really can't believe they did no business in this window. I think it's really poor from them.
Yeah, they were crying out for a centre forward, weren't they? I mean, just get anyone in who's keen to get their head down and play first team football. Because if Antonio gets injured or even just exhausted, they are out of ideas and sorts up front. And that is the team that surprised me most in the window about the lack of business, because I feel like, again, they finally bridged that gap. They're playing European football now. They've got a real chance in that competition to do well. Fighting on the league, can they make that? Can they go up in the league? And again, they've got some quality players there. Bowen, Declan Rice. They got bags of quality across the pitch. But again, just when you think they're going to push and strive for better, nothing comes through the door, and it might bite them back in the arse if Antonio gets injured, I have to say, because the goals will dry up fast.
Yeah, I'm really surprised the owners didn't back Moyes in the window. I think David Moyes is massively overachieving with the squad he's got there, and a couple of bodies in the door could have really helped them out with, pushing for that top four, and the fact they're still playing Europa League as well. So I'm surprised that they didn't do any business at all. I think that's could really hinder them. George, just to round out the stream then, mate, a couple of quick fire questions. First one, mate, who do you feel has done the best business in this window, and who's done the worst business?
Always hard to answer this one because it's all dependent on how they perform, isn't it? It's all
but as it stands now,
you probably have to say Newcastle.
Yeah.
Just because I felt like, was it all hearsay and Chinese whispers upstairs about them being backed? They did back it. They brought in some experience with some excitement in there. Eddie Howe can't complain now that he hasn't been given the players or the tools to now fight for getting out of relegation battle. So time will tell. Not necessarily the best players have come in, but I think that they've had the best window in the sense they needed to do that, and they did.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Newcastle up there. I also think Aston Villa a close second. Luca Digne brought in at fullback. Obviously, Philippe Coutinho on loan as well, with an option to buy for £33 million. I think that's a fantastic piece of business for Aston Villa. So I think they've had a great window as well. But I'd agree with you, mate. I think Newcastle, as it stands, have probably done the best business. I think Liverpool have had a good window getting Diaz in. But other than that, mate, I think those are the two standouts, Newcastle and Villa. But probably just Newcastle getting the nod in that one. In terms of the worst window, for me, mate, I honestly think it's either West Ham or some of the teams down at the bottom, maybe like a Norwich or someone like that, not really doing anything. I think West Ham had a terrible window. And yeah, for me, the worst window, Arsenal, close second, but the fact they've managed to get, dead wood off and save wages, etc., probably just gets them away from the worst window. I mean, what are your thoughts, George, on any difference to West Ham and Arsenal with a poor window?
Well, how it's turned out, probably Watford. I think not ideal. I know they've had a managerial change, but
a few bodies have come in. But yeah, it's not the caliber of player that's going to help you stay up.
No, not great. I was thinking more, Norwich. Arsenal, but just a quick mention as well. I thought one of the best bits of business, I know it wasn't Premier League directly, but I thought Ramsey to Rangers was a really promising one, considering the quality of footballer he is. I think if he can reach the form that he did for both international and club, I think that's a really good bit of business as well for a club like that. But.
And final thing before you round out, mate, obviously I'll give my answer as well. Who is your signing of the window? I know obviously, we don't know how they're going to perform, but before performances take place, who is your signing of the window, mate?
I'm going to say, don't let me down, Dele. Just because of the talent that he's got and he possesses and the experience that he brings, I think if he can reach the form that we saw at Tottenham Hotspur, I think he could be amazing for Everton. I think he could be an absolute catalyst for Frank Lampard and that Everton side. But it is also, it comes with a
little bit left field.
It comes with a big, bit of humble pie, like you said. If he just carries on being his lazy shit self, he's got to work hard. He's got to find that enjoyment, but he's got the talent. So I think in talent alone, I'll go Dele Alli.
Oh, for me, mate, I think the signing of the window, I honestly think it's Philippe Coutinho at Aston Villa. I think on a 6-month loan deal, great debut, goal and assist. I think he'll do well for Villa. He'll re-find his love for football. Him is probably, I think the best signing. I think Bruno Guimaraes is a great signing for Newcastle as well. But probably just Coutinho for me as best signing. But one last thing before we round up, I forgot to mention it, how great it is to see Christian Eriksen back playing football again after that horrific cardiac arrest on the pitch at the Euros, back in the Premier League, playing for Brentford. A real nice piece of news to kind of round out the window, George.
Oh man, I completely forgot about that. That could be a fantastic sign if he plays anywhere.
It could be, yeah.
The quality he's got, but fantastic. I mean, we were watching it live. I remember texting you saying he'll probably never play again. You said never say never, and thank God he's back. I mean, that's just a beautiful story to affect all football fans, to show that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I can't wait for him to be back in the Premier League.
No, exactly. I mean, that seems like a great point to round out on. So, yeah, guys, that's just myself and George's thoughts on the transfer window, the winners and losers, and best signing. As always, let us know your thoughts in the chat, in the comments, whether you agree or disagree with us. As you said at the top of the video, we've hit 300 subscribers now. So, yeah, please continue to click that subscribe button, spread the word. The channel's growing. So, next stop, 400 subscribers. So, let's get the road to 400 underway, guys. So please help us on our way. We will be back in the next couple of days with a Chelsea preview for the FA Cup fourth round, against Plymouth. Seems like a while since we've done any current Chelsea news, but we'll be back with that in the next couple of days, guys. So please do stay tuned for that. As always, smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, spread the word, up the Chelsea, and we'll catch you soon, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.